downstairs working on another volunteer project. And he said, oh, I'm excited because he says, I get to do my volunteer work and then I'll watch the video later. And I said, okay. Anybody else have questions? Okay. Well then, we're going to start in a traditional Buddhist way with a prayer. You'll see this sheet has two sides. It has one side says refuge prayer, and that's the side we're going to be looking at. Okay, so we'll start with that. It's traditional to turn to the Buddha as the teacher, turn to the Dharma as the path, and turn to the Sangha, or the community of practitioners, as one's community. And this is always recited at the beginning of Buddhist classes as a way of setting our motivation for the class. So we'll recite this 3 times in English. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve an enlightenment for the sake of all beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. Okay, thank you. I'll recite one short prayer of my own. O Palden Sawe Lama Rinpoche Tagi Chiwar Pede Ten Shula Kadrin Jembo Gone Je Sun Te Kusum Tugging a Drup Sal to Soul. Okay, thank you. All right. I just realized I hadn't been watching the time, and I want to make sure that I keep up with my time. Yeah, okay, good. All right. I'm going to be making a few remarks here at the beginning from a teaching that I typically share with people, and that you'll be receiving a copy of. And it contains 2 lectures about shrines. One is by a Gelugpa master from the Namgyal Monastery in upstate New York. The other one is a teaching by my own teacher, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche. But they can be, I guess you could say, summarized with just a few the first article asks why have an altar, and it's the images or representations of the Buddha's body, the Buddha's speech, and the Buddha's mind. These are 3 things that are represented on a Buddhist shrine: the Buddha's body, his speech, and his mind. And he said, this is from the Gelugpa monk. He says, these representations of the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha serve as reminders of the goal of Buddhist practice. And interacting with these representations help us to develop the same enlightened qualities ourselves, so that in the future we can benefit other sentient beings. And he reminds us that we do not set up an altar for fame, for showing off, or to increase our pride, but rather to reduce our mental afflictions and seek the ability to help all beings. And so that's a little bit of an introduction. Now, many people will ask, where is the best place to put a shrine? Where is the best place? Well, the best place for an altar really depends on your situation. If you have a big place and you have a separate shrine room, wow, that's really amazing. I have to tell you that when I first started practicing, I had a very small apartment, and so my shrine was on a small orange crate in a corner of my bedroom. It was kind of small. And my first Buddha image was a piece of cardboard about like that big that Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche had given me that had an image of the Buddha pasted on it. Anyway, that was my first shrine, an orange crate with a pasted on picture of the Buddha. That was it. It wasn't until many years later that I graduated to a closet shrine. I was a closet Buddhist. I had a shrine, a closet that opened that I didn't need. So I put my shrine inside the closet, and then I could close the doors when I wasn't practicing meditation and open them when I was. After that, I graduated to yet another apartment, and in my next apartment, I had a sun porch, and it was enclosed. And so I was able to meditate on my sun porch for certain months of the year. So I had the shrine out there. But it wasn't until we got a much larger place that I was able to have my own shrine room. I felt like it was a great day for me. It was like, yes, I can have my own room. It's really the best, because then you can do with it whatever you want. But you don't have to worry if all you have is an orange crate in a corner of your bedroom. I have a friend who showed me how to solve that situation. I was looking at her home, and she took me to her bedroom, and there was this Japanese screen. And I said, oh, that's a very beautiful screen. And she said, wait till you see what's behind it. And she moved it, and it was her altar. She had a little, close to the ground, a little Buddhist altar behind the screen. And she said, I just keep it behind the screen, and then when I want to sit and meditate, I move the screen out a bit and I sit behind the screen. So I have my own little cozy room in my bedroom. And I said, oh, clever. So to me, it doesn't matter whether you have a shrine room, an alcove, a corner, a closet, or what you have, as long as you have a place where you feel comfortable and that is quiet. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said, please don't make your shrine in the middle of your hallway, because there's too much coming and going. He said, try to put it in a quieter spot in your home. So the size of your shrine is not important, but what is important is that it's clean and respectful. The shrine should be higher than the level of your head when you sit facing it. That is, if you're sitting on the floor. Now, if you're sitting on a chair, it would be great if you could have it above that level, but that's really difficult, so don't worry too much about that. But the idea is to have it higher than the level of your head if you're sitting in front of it. And I'll never forget, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche would go into people's homes and stay with them as a cost-cutting measure when he would visit our centers and centers everywhere. One person had their shrine on a coffee table, which, as we know, coffee tables are quite low. And he made some kind of remark that was, you really need to uplift your aspiration a little bit. He said, your aspiration is a little low right now. You could uplift it just a little bit. In other words, have your shrine a little higher. I thought that was a cute way of calling attention to something and yet being playful about it. So if you have the shrine in your bedroom, the shrine should be placed near to the head of your bed, but never at the foot of the bed. And it should be higher than the bed. He said the altar should be either on a separate shelf or on a table set aside for the purpose that does not double as a coffee table or a nightstand. The idea is that it should just be for the shrine. and shouldn't do double duty. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche made a remark about saying, you don't want to walk into somebody's shrine room and find out that they have used it for their dirty socks, you know? Anyway, again, humor is a good way to learn things. So that's a little bit about the shrine. Now you might ask, well, why can I not place the shrine at the foot of my bed? There's an Asian tradition that the feet are the lowest part of the body, and therefore the least respectful part of the body, and the head is the upper part of the body and the most respectful part of the body. And so the idea is that one should never point one's feet toward a holy object or a holy being. So it's a tradition that we try to follow. We can't always, but we try. And so that's a little bit about where you can have your altar. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, just checking. Okay, all right. So the next thing to talk about are the sacred objects and what they represent. A Buddhist altar or a shrine will hold symbols, as I said before. They will symbolize the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. Traditionally, the body is represented by displaying an image of the Buddha, whether it's my little pasteboard, my little pasted cardboard, or a statue, or anything in between. So that's what represents the Buddha's enlightened body, is the actual form of the Buddha. The second, his speech is represented by a book of scripture, or even just one scripture. And his mind is represented by something called a stupa, and that's spelled S as in Sam, T as in Tom, U, P as in Paul, A. Stupa literally means mound, and it has to do with the funeral mounds that were built after the death of the Buddha. The Buddha explained that his cremation ashes were to be placed in mounds in the 8 different significant places that he went to during his life. Some of these, a mound was raised where he was born, where he attained enlightenment, where he began teaching, where he returned from the God realm when he went to visit his mother there, and so on. There are 8 different ones that I may not be able to bring them back from memory right now, but these mounds eventually morphed into the design of a stupa that we see today, which consists of a square throne upon which sits geometric shapes, a square, a circle, and a triangle that represent the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. And we have one such stupa outside in front of our building on the handicap ramp. And it has relics in it. It actually has Buddha relics inside it and is a source of blessing to everyone who sees it. But its geometric shapes suggest a Buddha sitting in meditation. And that's because not everybody can be artful and make an image of the Buddha, but you can make these geometric shapes. And so this stupa symbolizes the Buddha's mind, because it is said that the Buddha dwells in the stupa, that because there are relics in the stupa, that the Buddha's mind actually is dwelling there. And so you can honor the stupa and honor the Buddha's mind by honoring the stupa. Now, let's say you don't have a stupa. No problem. They invented this thing that's amazing. It's called the internet. You can download a picture of one and put that picture on your shrine. You don't have to have a physical one. And so the little scripture, the little scripture that you get can be even just a Dharma book if you don't have a Buddhist scripture on hand. I mean, not too many people have Buddhist scriptures on hand. And I meant to bring some for you today so everybody could take one home. I was just not with it today. But if any of you live out of town who are visiting today, you can send me your address and I'll make sure you get one. Or you can come to the center tomorrow and I can give you one. Either way. If, according to the teacher who has written this text about the shrine, he said there's a way and a method for ranking the statues. The Buddha Shakyamuni is always the central figure. Other images are not required. But if you have them, you can group them around the Buddha. Images of the enlightened masters, images of the what are called yidams, which are Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who, through their special activity, benefit beings, and whose mantras we can recite, such as Tara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, Chenrezig, the Bodhisattva of compassion, and so on. And then you can also have images of protectors. And so it's Buddha in the center, then teachers, bodhisattvas, and protectors. But this is not strict, and Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche often encouraged people to use their largest image as the central image, regardless of what it was, and that to have a small image of the Buddha in front of it, but he said, and he was always in favor of aesthetics, If someone has given you a very large image of Chenrezig, well, then you would put that at the center of your shrine, but then either in front of it or whatever, you would put an image of the Buddha Shakyamuni. And then these others can go on the outside. The order of the arrangement is it's not hard and fast, but these are just suggestions. The scripture representing the speech of the Buddha does not have to be written in Tibetan or Sanskrit. It can be written in English or any other language. It can be, if you want to represent all of the Buddha's teachings in one little scripture, that one little scripture is the Heart Sutra. It's one of the sutras of the Buddha. The Heart Sutra is very short, and you can download it from the internet in several languages. Fold up the piece of paper that you have printed out, cover it with a nice cloth, and there you have your Buddhist scripture. What I was going to give you today is just a very small booklet of the Heart Sutra that's only about, maybe 4 inches by 3 inches. It was really small. But it is the Heart Sutra, and if you wrap it in cloth, you can place it on your shrine. Now, if you have this, you can put it on the top shelf of the shrine. In the old center, I believe we had some of the scriptures placed behind the Buddha image. Am I remembering that right? Yeah, okay, yeah. The Gelugpa Lama says you can put them above, but that's a little inconvenient. So on the same level as the Buddha statue is good. And then the mind is represented by the picture or the stupa, the picture of a stupa or a stupa. So you can put those there. Here's what the teacher says. If your altar is 3 levels, you can put the Buddha on the 2nd level and the scripture on the top, or as we did, put the scripture right behind the Buddha. It's okay. So if your altar is on 1 level, the order can be like this, from left to right. The scripture, the Buddha and the stupa. But I've seen it done the other way as well. So I think, again, there's no hard and fast rule. Okay, any questions about what we've got so far? Yes, I'll repeat the question. Yeah.
Why do you cover the scripture in cloth?
Oh yeah, why is the scripture covered with a cloth? The scripture is covered with a cloth to show respect, mainly. It's like putting a pretty gold frame around your picture of Aunt Betty. You know, it's like there's like this sense of honoring it by giving it something special. As a matter of fact, those of you who might have come to KTC a little early today might have gone downstairs and seen the mantra crew at work down there. They were using saffron water and a little yellow food coloring to paint over strips of mantras that will later be dried and cut and then rolled into large cylinders of mantras that will then be placed inside our Buddha statues when we put our 3 big Buddha statues on this shrine sometime next year or the year after. They will have a lot of mantras inside them. And so this same principle is that you wind the piece of mantra around an incense stick, you glue it so that it's this little cylinder, but then you put a little jacket around it. They actually have us gluing little cloth jackets on the outside. They don't have collars, they're just cute. You know, they're not that kind of jacket. Anyway, so you get the point. Other questions that people might have? Yes. Well, that's an excellent question. I personally feel that that they're the same. I think that there is the altar or the shrine can be, I mean, pretty much in English, altar only refers to the actual physical structure of an altar or shrine. But interestingly enough, I don't think altar, but in some Christian places, the altar really is the whole area at the front of the sanctuary. So you could probably use them interchangeably. Shrine is also the same. It's the actual construction that you put the images on, but it's also, this whole room is called a shrine room. So, or if we were so inclined, we would call it an altar room. But we mostly use the word shrine in English. But thanks for asking. Any other question that people might have? Good so far? Good so far. Okay, very good. And we'll get to your question on color shortly. These objects on the shrine, remember they stand for the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, right? Well, you can also have representation of the 3 jewels of Buddhist refuge. Remember the Buddha, his teaching, and the order most excellent that's mentioned in the refuge prayer? If there's only a statue of the Buddha Shakyamuni, you can think that the Buddha Shakyamuni represents all 3 of the 3 jewels of enlightenment. You know, his body is the Sangha, his mind is the Buddha, and his speech is the scripture. I mean, so you get the idea. If you just have one image and it's just the Buddha, that's fine. You can also, if there's a scripture, well, then that represents the Dharma, the jewel of the Dharma. And if you have the stupa, you can think that the stupa is the awakened one, or the Buddha, and the actual Buddha image, that's your Sangha. So it's very, you know, it's very lovely that your shrine can represent all of these things. It's important to keep in mind that the objects on the altar serve as a means for directing our mind to the Buddha and his enlightened qualities, which then one aspires to emulate for the benefit of others. And so when in maintaining an altar, one is trying to cultivate the qualities of the Buddha's enlightened body, speech, and mind. And by remembering these qualities and aspiring to develop them, one reduces one's own negativities because, hey, anytime you spend doing virtue, you're not doing non-virtue. So it's kind of like a good replacement. But it also increases positive qualities like faith, respect, devotion, and so on. While there are no limitations to what can be offered, as I would still not like for you to put your muddy boots in the Buddha's lap, like in the humorous example, but there are many things that can be offered. You can have a shrine that has one level, that has 3 levels, or that has 5 levels. Each one has symbolism. One level refers to the one nature of mind, the Buddha nature. So if you only have one shelf, it represents the one mind of Buddhahood. If you have 3 shelves, it stands for the 3 jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And if you have 5, the 5 stands for the 5 Buddha families, the 5 wisdoms of Buddhahood. And this is where the colors come in. You don't paint each one a different color, but the 5 Buddhas are represented, and the 5 wisdoms are represented by the colors you see in the shrine room. I will only be able to mention them briefly. I'll only be able to mention them briefly, but I do have a chart I can share with you. Each of these 5 Buddha wisdoms is represented by a particular color. And, oh boy, I don't know that I'm going to be able to recite it. I may have to look it up, and so I recite it correctly. But white, the 5 colors are white, red, blue, yellow, and green. Again, the 5 colors that you will see represented in a Tibetan shrine room are white, red, blue, yellow, and green. And I will, because we're going to take a break here shortly, and that during the break I'll get that called up on my computer and then share which is which with you. But they're all of these colors are representatives of wisdoms that can arise in the mind at the time of Buddhahood. And so when we see Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that are of those 5 colors, for example, the Buddha Vajrasattva is white, the Buddha Amitabha is red, the Buddha Vajradhara is blue, and so on. Each of these, the Bodhisattva Manjushri is like an orangish yellow color, and the Tara is green. So, you know, they all have symbolism to these qualities. It says there are no limits to what can be offered, and there are many ways that you can offer. And in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, it's customary to offer 7 or 8 bowls of offerings in front of your shrine. 7 is the most traditional, but many add an 8th bowl. And I'll get to that when we bring the table to the front and start walking through them. And so I think what we'll do is, because of the time, it's about 10 minutes to 11, and we're due to go till 12. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to take a 5-minute break so everybody can stretch their legs, use the restroom. I'll make it 7 minutes. I'm going to give you 2 extra minutes. And this will give us a little time to bring our pretend altar to the front, and then we can walk through the offerings. And we'll have you gather on either side of it. You can get a little closer. You can bring your chairs and sit up closer during the break. And then that way we'll have a clear shot for the camera, but at the same time you'll be able to sit up closer and see, okay? All right. So we'll take a short break, and if you want to pause the recording, we'll resume when we get done. So see you in 5 minutes. in the aisle, because that'll get in the way of the camera. But I can show you some of the simplified things here. Okay. Okay, here we go. All right. Okay, I just had to bring up the teaching. There's going to be, I'm going to do two things. First of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about, if you could clear the aisle for the camera, you can come up close on either side. Yeah, we just need to keep the aisle clear for the camera. So these are you'll see these on the bottom of this altar. There are flowers on either side, but the 7 or 8 bowls are water, water, and then a representation of flowers, incense, lamps, perfume, food, and music. And so and I'll explain the symbolism of each of these offerings after I introduce a little bit about each one. The symbolism of these is that, well, I think I'll go ahead and do that part now. It's a little easier for me. The first is a bowl of water, and this is drinking water that's offered. And although, as I said earlier, the statues don't need to eat or drink, when we offer it, we do it for the accumulation of virtuous qualities. And it's said that this simple offering is made before the compassionate Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, so there is water to alleviate the temporary suffering in realms where beings constantly suffer from thirst, but it's also offered so that ultimately the water of the Dharma teaching will alleviate the suffering of all beings. So that's it symbolizes the water that is the blessing of the Buddha's teachings that relieves suffering. The second bowl is bathing water. We don't offer this because the Buddhas need to wash. Rather, it's done for the benefit of ourselves and all beings, that we request the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas so that the karmic patterns of all sentient beings will be purified and cleaned. The third bowl, we offer flowers. As before, the offering is not made because they particularly need these things. Instead, the offering is made so that all beings may temporarily experience higher realms of existence, or more comfort and safety and goodness. We aspire that all beings will eventually experience the Buddha's body, the immaculate body that engenders all the marks and signs of an awakened being. So we offer it to accumulate toward that. The incense in the fourth bowl is offered to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to eliminate the sort of unwholesome smell of the suffering of samsara. Now, you might say that's a funny thing to talk about, but it's said in Buddhist teachings that a holy being will actually have a very pleasant smell. They will actually, I don't know what the reason for this is, but in fact, it's said that where a master lives, it always smells like there's incense burning. So the idea is that this stands for pure conduct. And so the incense symbolizes pure conduct. See, this is a problem of having very small ears. My ears are very small, and they can't keep these going. I was able to do it this morning, just now this afternoon, got a little trouble with it. So the offering of the lamp in the fifth bowl is made to cause relative wisdom to arise among beings. In other words, the relative wisdom that can discern right from wrong, virtue from non-virtue, and so on. But ultimately, we make this offering of light toward the accumulation of the qualities and toward the ultimate realization of the awakened state without limitation for ourselves and for all beings. The sixth offering is composed of scented water, which is used after bathing And it, again, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have no need for artificial fragrances because they have the aroma of pure virtue, for pure virtuous conduct. But the offering is made so that all beings may experience an uplifted psychological state, which is aware of the natural perfection and purity of all things. As a result, when we have this kind of realization, everything we encounter radiates goodness to us and has a soothing and enlightening aroma. And then the seventh bowl contains a food offering. Basically, any kind of food will do as long as it's clean. This offering is made to temporarily relieve the suffering of hunger. But ultimately, it is offered, and we make the wish that all beings will have the capacity to live on what is called the food of meditation, the idea that their meditation will sustain them. And then the eighth offering is music. This is placed by placing a bell or a specific source of music on the shrine. Now, the conch shell here, the small shell here, is representative of the conch trumpets that are used in a Tibetan liturgical orchestra. So we have a small shell here, but we could just as easily have a couple of ringing cymbals, the little ding ding, little cymbals, that we could put that there as well. And but basically, through offering the pleasant sound, we accumulate and ask merit and ask for the elimination of irritating sounds that cause fear among beings. But ultimately, we wish that the self-sounding nature of the Dharma pervade all sentient beings. So these are the symbols of these eight. Does anybody have questions about the symbolism? Yes?
Not necessarily the symbolism, but I believe each one has a name.
That's right. There are names. The person's asking what are the names of the offerings. These correspond to words in Tibetan Buddhist offering chants, because the chanting done at Tibetan offering pujas, or puja means like it's a practice session or a chant session. So when you hear in Green Tara, for example, the words argam, that refers to the water that is for drinking. Argam, A-R-G-H-A-M. Padyam, which is spelled P as in Peter, A-D as in David, Y-A-M as in Mary. That's my best pronunciation guess of a spelling, but it might not be the way it's actually spelled. This is water for washing. Flowers are associated with the offering word pupe, which is P-U-P-E, pupe. Incense is represented by the word dupe, which is D as in David, U, P as in Paul, E, dupe. The light is associated with the word aloke, A-L-O-K-E. The perfume offering is associated with Gende, G as in George, E-N-D-E. The food offering is associated with the offering word Newade, which is N as in Nancy, I-W as in wow. I'm going to say Newade, I'm going to say I, D as in David, E as in Edward, Newade. I think it's close. It's not the spelling that you're used to, but that's the sound it makes. And the word associated with music offering is Shabda, and that's S as in Sam, H, A, B as in boy, Shabda, D as in David, A. Argam Padyam, Pupe Dupe, Aloke Gende, Newade Shabda. And although we won't be teaching them today, there are mudras also to be used with these, but that would have to be a whole separate class, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to complete everything today. But that's, so did that get your question? Other things that people might, yes, yes, yes. Let me ask you first in case it's a technical question.
No, it's a question from the Zoom group.
Okay, sure.
She says, Judy says, my shrine is a small desk with 2 levels. Should I try to make a 3rd level, or is it best to rethink my shrine and get another structure in which to place the sources of inspiration in a proper setup?
Yes, the answer to that is there is an easy way to do that, Judy. The easiest way to do that is by getting a box that will fit your items on top of them and putting that on top of your second shelf. I accomplished it by getting a piece of wood and 4 dowels that I made into little legs, and then I covered it over with cloth so you didn't have to see my messy woodworking or lack thereof skills. And that would raise the Buddhas above the level of the offerings and give you your 3rd shelf. So that way you don't have to rework the whole thing. You just have to cover a box with cloth. So thank you. So there's a second question from, yeah, go.
Okay.
We have 14 people on Zoom.
If you have a tsatsa, should you also have an image of a stupa?
Oh, if you have a satsa, well, if the satsa is one of these, I think I can actually walk. Okay, if your satsa is one of these, conical satsas. Yeah, you got that one? Am I in the right place? Okay, good deal. If it's one of these conical satsas, no, you would not need a stupa, because each of the 8 stupas are depicted in clay around the outside of this. So each of the 8 stupas are associated here. So no, and there's also mantra inside and a piece of blessing rice inside. So this would stand in perfectly for a stupa. But if you want to put a picture up, that's okay too. That's called a tsatsa, and that's T as in Tom, S as in Sam, A, T-S-A, satsa. And it has to do with clay. It's like a clay reliquary. There are brass molds that you can make these with, but modern days they make them out of plaster in silicone molds. It's much faster, and you get a really good product out of it. So yeah. So okay, question.
I was just curious about the type of incense you recommend.
The type of incense. Okay, oh, there's so many kinds of incense, so many. And some people have allergies to incense, and so they can't use incense at all. But if you don't have an allergy to incense, then I like, personally, some of the Japanese incenses are very nice. They have a light fragrance. They're very nice. But this is a Tibetan incense. And Tibetan incense has a mixture of different things. Sometimes you'll get a little sandalwood, and it'll favor sandalwood over just about everything else. But sometimes there'll be other aromas as well, as cedar, juniper, and so on. And my favorite incense, personally, is the Bhutanese incense, which is very dense. So that's my favorite. So yes.
We have 3 more questions from online.
Oh my goodness. Okay, then we'll probably have to stop and go to the.
Does it matter what type of vessel the water is poured from into the bowls?
The answer is no. The main thing that my teachers have told me always is that the vessel that the water is poured from into the bowls should be clean and not made of any material that is poisonous, like lead. You wouldn't put it in a lead or tin vessel because there would be it would poison the water essentially. Okay, yeah, these are great questions.
What are the traditional ways to scent the water for Gende?
Mm-hmm.
Are they and are all the offerings sitting in rice, or can something else be used?
Right, okay, good. I think that the answer to that is as I'm going back over each bowl, I'll mention that, okay, because I'm going to do a quick review now. And do you have a third?
Yes. How often does the water need to be changed, and what is the appropriate disposal of the water?
This was asked about earlier about the daily practice, and we will cover that. So we got you covered. We got you covered. Okay, now for the demo. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche was very particular about his shrine. He wanted it to be done properly. And so he told us, to begin with, the bowls should be placed about a rice grain apart. Now, you may or may not be able to do that because you might have small bowls, and then you would have all this vast open space on either side. But it still is he said, it's very respectful, dignified, elegant, and beautiful. So this would be how you would arrange your bowls so that they're a rice grain apart. You can fill all of the bowls with water if you wish to. You do not need to have these special offerings sitting in rice. If you're very busy and don't have enough time, you can have 7 or 8 bowls of water. What some people will do is they will arrange the bowls in this way so that there is a bowl for everything except the lamp, and then you can use 7 bowls and a lamp. The lamp would be placed in a small lamp chalice, or there's a small, you can see them. Do we have one? Yeah, we have a lamp chalice on the bottom row there. Or you can put them in any kind of candle holder. Yeah, you can have a little visual aid here. And so that's another way to use 7 bowls, but still have 8 offerings. All right, excellent. Ooh, that's a good one. Ta-da. Okay, so then that's what some people would do. If you only had 7 bowls, you could offer the lights separately, like that. That's another way to do it. If you only have 7 bowls but want to make 8 offerings, you just put the lamp in its usual place. Water, argam padyam pupe dupe aloke, gande nevide shabda. So it would go the 4th from your left. 1, 2, 3, 4. I said 4th, I meant after the 4th. It would not be the 4th bowl, it would be after the 4th. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the light, and then 1, 2, 3, like that. So you can fill these bowls with anything you like. Grain, rice, barley, and so forth is traditional. But what I will tell you is that if you leave the grains of rice in for a long time, the small moisture content in those rice grains will color and discolor the insides of your metal bowls. This will happen. And that's something you have to watch out for. Some people, instead of using rice, will use what we have here, which is a mixture of grains and gemstones. And some people will use those little polished gemstones instead of rice. It's fine, doesn't matter, because the idea is that I asked my teacher, well, what's the rice all about? And he said, well, the rice is used to multiply the offering. To multiply the offering. In other words, you're not just offering 1 stick of incense, you're offering 1 stick of incense several hundred times because of the several hundred rice grains in the bowl. I mean, it's sweet, it's a sweet idea. So, so you can put rice or any kind of grain or gemstones. I have seen people put aquarium gravel in there. I'm cold on aquarium gravel. I think it's better to save up your pennies and get the gemstones. So the person was asking online how to perfume the water. The most common method in Tibet for perfuming the water is to use, thank you very much, is to use strands of the, I don't know if that is a spice or an herb, saffron. And these little grains of saffron then are placed in the bowl and water is placed on top of them. Or alternatively, you can pour the water in first and then put the saffron in afterward. And so this is the most common method for perfuming water, although I have actually seen people have a little perfume bottle and then put a drop of actual perfume in it. So but these are the two methods I've seen used most of the time.
So
Yes.
essential oils would be okay?
Essential oil, yeah, I think, yeah. I think that would be nice. It would give it a nice smell. Now, the other question that was asked from the web, if I remember correctly, was about the daily practice. Okay, the daily practice, and I'm going to put this guy back here. Okay. When, by the way, when your bowls don't have water in them, when they don't have offerings in them, they're typically turned upside down. I asked my teacher about, well, why is that? And he said, well, you don't want to have an empty bowl placed in front of your guest, meaning the Buddha. So it's thought to be more respectful to have them turned upside down. So if you wanted to do your daily shrine practice, which is done every day, ideally, you would go to your shrine in the morning, bow 3 times toward the shrine, and that's a whole other class, but by placing your hands together at the top of your head, you're offering your body. By placing them at your throat, you're offering your speech, and by placing them at your heart, you're offering your mind. And if you can get on the floor, I can't anymore, you would then place your forehead on the floor as a way of saying, I am willing to work for the benefit of sentient beings. And then when you stand, you return to a standing position, you are thinking, may I liberate sentient beings from suffering. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we can definitely do that. We can definitely have a class about this type of, yeah, I think that would be a fun class. I think it would be really fun because then we could talk a little bit about the meanings of such things as the rosary and the mudras and things. It would be fun to do. Yeah, this is why we're so excited to have this building, because now we can do things that we weren't able to do for a few years while we were in between. So in any case, a person would go to their altar and bow 3 times to the Buddha and so forth. And then after bowing 3 times to the Buddha, one would go, I'm going to do this from the back so that I'm not in the way of the camera, but you would turn your bowl up and put, see if I can do this without making a mess, Juliana. See, I may get lucky here. And then you would put a small drip of water in it. So again, you don't have an empty bowl in front of your guest. You turn up your second one, and you can either put a little of this water in here, or you can pour some in. But often what will happen is they'll put a little bit of water here, and then it'll pour into here, and then it would pour into here. So that you'd have a little dribble of water in each of these bowls, again, so you don't have any empty bowls. Then you would fill the bowls, and how the bowls would be filled would be till about a rice grain from the top. I tell people, don't go quite that high because it'll be messy when you try to take it down. But this is the instruction, that it should be filled almost to the top, but not quite. Part of the reason for this is that when you have a shrine like this one in a congregational space, if there is a long puja being done, small dribbles of water will be placed in these bowls over and over again to refresh the offering for each part of the puja. So here we don't fill them even very close to the top at all, because sometimes we have to fill them with little bits of refreshing water. And you might think, well, what do I do while I'm doing this? Do I chant something? And I tell people, if you know the refuge chant, it's a great thing to chant. I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. You can just recite that. I took up this tradition when I was in 3-year retreat. You open your shrine every day, and I would recite the prayer of taking refuge. And I formed the tradition, this is not taught in Buddhism, but I formed the tradition of thinking about my parents and feeling gratitude. I mean, not everyone gets along with their parents, I understand that. But I felt a lot of gratitude to my parents, because without them I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be able to do this. And so I feel some gratitude, and I pray for them in my morning prayers. And again, this is just a Kathy thing. This is not a Buddhist thing. It's just a Kathy thing. And then you would take your little bits of saffron. I've got like a pinch of saffron, and you put that in your bowl. And that's how you would open your shrine. Now, if you want to go all out, what you would also have, and we have to do this at some point, is there is a tradition in Tibet of taking a small vessel of water. It's got a really pretty little curved spout and a feather whisk on it, so it looks really fancy and handsome. It's called a bumpa, B-U-M-P-A, or vase. And then you would pull the feather whisk out, and you would sprinkle a little water on the offerings that you just made to purify any bad attitude on your part or any mistakes in the offerings. Because we're human and we tend to have doubts. And so that's what they would do. They would sprinkle it with a little water. Some people would just use a stick of incense and a little bit, and they'll sprinkle it 3 times. There are a couple of different mantras you can use for this. I've heard both Om, Ah, and Hum used, and I've also heard Ram, R-A-M, Yam, Y-A-M, Kam, K-A-M. I've also heard that because Ram, Yam, Kam symbolizes water, wind, and water, fire, and wind, the cleansing force of water, fire, and wind. And Om, Ah, and Hum, O-M is the first one. Second one is Ah, A-H. Third one is Hung, or Hum, H-U-M. Om Ah Hung is an offering mantra. It has lots of symbolism to it. It can be symbolic of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. It can be symbolic of offering. And so I've heard both of these used when you sprinkle the water. And that would be, and then you would do all of your practice in front of the shrine after having made the offerings and blessed them and purified them and so forth. Then you would sit down and do your practice. And then you would go about your day. When you came home at the end of the day, you would go back to your shrine. For the evening shrine practice, you would do your bowing in front of the Buddha. And then after bowing in front of the Buddha, you would return to the shrine. You would do your evening prayers. And then the last action of the day would be to take the offerings off of the shrine. It is customary, because people don't have the kind of money to make big offerings all the time. The custom is to keep the bowls with rice in them intact and not take the rice out. That's customary in Tibet because nobody was wealthy, and you can't throw throw food out for the animals every night. It just can't be done. So what they would do then would be they would dispose of the water, and you would dispose of the water going in the opposite direction. Yeah, you have, I didn't think about that part. Oh yeah, I remember, you have this really cute, yeah. It's cute, it's got flower petals on it. Thank you. Isn't it cute? This is, I mean, if you're gonna have a trash bin, have one that looks like a lotus flower. I think that's awesome. Then you would take the water bowls off in the opposite direction that they were placed in the morning. You would dry out the bowl, making sure you get all the drips out because brass will stain. These are brass. Then you take this one off. And again, you can do mantra, like the compassion mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. You can do anything while you're working on the shrine. And then place it upside down, and then the last one. And then what you would do is you would get ready for the next day. You'd prepare your offering jug for the next day, you know, with fresh water for the next day, and you'd be ready to go. Now, you could, these are packaged treats, so you could feasibly take your packaged treats off of the shrine and feed them to your family. You could, as long as you're not serving them in this bowl, you're all right. Like our poor friend who went to visit the shrine and said, "Oh, food for me," and then he would just went and availed himself of it. But so that's a little bit about the daily practice. Were you the one who asked about daily? Does this satisfy what you were curious about?
Yes, it does. I was curious though, should the food offering, since it is a packaged treat, that should be replaced every day? Sorry.
The last part?
Goods and stuff, that kind of thing should be replaced every day?
You know, ideally, the question is, should the food offering be replaced every day? And the answer to that is, if you can. If you can. It's nice. It's not required, but it's nice. You know, I asked my teacher, you know, it's hard to remember to make the shrine offerings every morning, and it's hard to remember to take them down at night. And he had a very simple answer to that. He said, "Do you eat every day? Do you drink water every day?" The answer is, "Every day, please." You know, again, because it's like anything else, consistency builds a sense of accomplishment. Consistency builds a sense of the sacred, because the more you interact with your shrine, it's actually going to feel better and better and better. So in this way, by interacting with your shrine every day, it feels like a really good environment. Now, yes, Don, did I answer all of the questions? I may have missed one.
No, I think you answered all the questions I asked. There was one more question.
Sure.
Is it okay to use glass bowls for offerings?
Is it okay to use glass? And the answer is absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Julie. Okay, yes, it is. You can use, for example, we have glass bowls here. And I use glass bowls. I have two shrines at home, a little one and a big one. And the big one has silver bowls with plastic inserts, you know, so that the silver doesn't get damaged. If you buy the footed Revere style bowls that are sold, you know, in department stores and online and so forth, these little footed bowls, then often they will come with plastic inserts. The silver-plated ones will come with plastic inserts, which will protect the metal. And I like that. I really like that one. Somebody gave me that set, and I treasure it. The only problem with silver, though, is you have to clean it on a regular basis or it gets really tarnished, because you have to try to kind of keep things nice. I'll never forget Khenpo Urgyen Tenzin coming into a KTC center that will not be named for obvious reasons, in someplace else in the United States. It wasn't here. But he walked into the shrine room and he looked at the shrine and he was displeased. It was actually quite dirty. And so he took everything off the shrine, he dusted it. He actually went into the kitchen and cleaned the bowls. And then he made fresh offerings, and then he did his 3 prostrations. He wasn't going to do his 3 prostrations until he got the shrine the way he wanted it. It was very cute. Yeah. Oh, was that a question?
No, I have 2 questions. So my first question is, I noticed your incense is very lovely and well made.
Yes, by the way, did you do this? It's lovely. Oh, Judah did that. Okay, it's very nice.
It is. So is that how we should be making our incense at home?
Yeah, oh, I see.
I don't make it beautiful like that.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's like anything else. Yeah, it depends on what you have. Yeah, what she's remarking about is this lovely arrangement where there's it looks like a little tower, doesn't it? It has one type of incense on the outside, another type of incense on the inside that's a little taller, and then like a pinnacle at the top. And I've seen this done a lot. I think we have one here that has like little tape wound around it with a pretty design. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. But I didn't do any of those things. There are incense boxes that are where the incense is about that tall. And then you can push it down. You can just take the whole bundle out and put the whole bundle in. Or you can put 3 or 5, and there's a special like design where you can cross it, where it's 3 incense sticks, 1, 2, 3, and then another incense stick put in front of the other, and like an X. It's very cute. We've done that before here. And so that's not but does that answer your question?
It does. And then I have one other question.
Uh-huh.
So is it, because I noticed we don't talk about lighting the incense.
Right. Good question. Yes, the question is, where do you light incense? Where do you light the incense? I'm really glad you brought that up, because the incense that is offered in this bowl is itself not burned. It is not burned in that bowl. What the Tibetans have done is that they will have a small incense burner placed in front of the shrine. It will either be on the first level or it will be on the floor in front of the shrine, so that the incense comes up. And so these are not lit. The incense that is displayed in the bowl. I'm going to make a joke and say, for display purposes only. But anyway, so did that cover your question? Did you have another?
Oh, what happens if you really realistically can only do it once a day? Like you set up your shrine, you do your practice, and then you shut it back down again.
You can actually, open and close it. Yeah, just like really quick. If you have only enough time to do that in the daytime, open the shrine, do your practice, close the shrine. Yeah, you can do that. Because I know how busy it gets. It can get really busy especially if you have children and pets, right? There's a lot. There was something I was thinking of saying, but I forgot. Yeah. Yeah. The questioner is asking how to make an offering of the traditional Tibetan food offering cake that's called a torma. I'll show you what one looks like. Do we have one? No. Okay. There is a small, it's usually a geometric shape, and it will sit in this bowl. Now, if you get a permanent one that's made of painted wood or painted clay, then you would actually put some real food in front of it every day. You could also use a separate little offering bowl or plate in front and then put it there. But if you are hand making the tormas, and you have them in your refrigerator or freezer and take one out every day, you would put a new one out every day. There would be a new one every day. And that's what we did in 3-year retreat. We made a whole bunch in advance, and then we'd go get one every day and then put one in there. And then you would throw it out at night to the delight of all the raccoons in the neighborhood. Yeah, they love Other questions? Did you have a question? Okay, yes. This is fun, right? How much time do we have? Oh, we have about 15 minutes. So yeah, let's see what else we're going to do.
2 more questions.
Uh-huh.
When closing down the shrine at night, at what point do you recite the refuge prayer?
Oh, very good. When you're closing the shrine at night. You know, a lot of people do. I'm glad this question was asked because a lot of people will do their refuge vow maintenance practice when they have opened their shrine. When a person takes the Buddhist vow of refuge, it is customary to retake the vow of refuge in the morning and retake it in the evening. And so that they are like bookends, Dharma bookends on your day. It's a way of remembering the Buddha all day long. So in the morning, I recite the refuge prayer while I am pouring, but that's just my own tradition. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche actually mentioned reciting the refuge prayer at some point in the past while pouring the water. But there are many, many other things that you can recite while doing the water. There's lots of ways it can be done. But after the bowls are filled, then I would retake the refuge vow at that time. After you've made the offerings and the shrine's ready to go, then I would retake my refuge vow. In the evening, I would go to the shrine, bow 3 times, retake my refuge vow, and do my end of the day practice, which would consist of thinking about my day and thinking, well, this I did well, I rejoice in that virtue. This I didn't do so well, I confess and regret my negative karma, and I will do better tomorrow. And then after having reviewed my day, I will retake my refuge vow, and then I would dispose of the day's offering. So I think does that seem to cover it, guys? The people who know? Yeah.
Okay, what about setting up a shrine when traveling?
Oh, shrine, yes, traveling shrine. Well, you know, there's lots of extra things you can do when you're setting up camp and breaking camp and setting up camp and breaking camp. But I think it's much easier just to, what some people do is they will have a simplified offering. They will have a small electric candle, which is really the safest anyway. They would have a small electric candle. I've actually met people who have traveling shrines that's a little box, and you open it up, and it's like got a little Buddha inside it. It's like Buddha in a box, right? And then it's the Buddha is lifted off inside the box is lifted off the main level, and then they take out a single bowl of water, or they'll put a piece of fruit in front of the Buddha, or it's very sweet. The little travel shrines can be very simple.
And where do you dispose of the water?
The water is generally disposed of outdoors if you can, and you would dispose of it in a place where people don't walk, so people wouldn't be walking on the offering. Animals, well, the animals are going to go where animals go, but we're thinking people mostly here. And the same would go for any food that you would put outdoors, would be placed in a place where people wouldn't walk. But these are great questions. I'm thinking what I'd like to do now is if we could move this to the side for now. Yeah. Shrine team. I'll say some things in conclusion. Thanks, guys. Well done. Thank you to the shrine crew. I hope this has been helpful to you to understand a little bit about what a shrine is and how you care for it. A lot of people, let me make sure, there was one other question that was asked, and that was about cleaning the shrine. Yes, on a regular basis, that was the one question that I forgot to address in the list that you asked about. Let me do that first, and then I'll make some closing remarks. there are times when you have to clean the shrine, and we do it here. Julaine and her team, they'll bring another table out, take the items off the shrine, clean the shrine, then put the items back on. They can also dust. They have to dust the statues from time to time. I don't know what you use. I like Swiffers, but that's me. And then you would put the offerings back up and so on. But I do encourage people to refresh the rice and things like that on a regular basis. There are 4 Buddhist holidays or holy days in the calendar year, and that would give you 4 opportunities, convenient opportunities, to remember to clean your shrine. Plus, it is customary in Tibetan households to clean the shrine before the Tibetan New Year, which is at roughly the same time as the Chinese New Year. They're very close together. Sometimes they're even on the same day. But before New Year, then people would also clean their shrines. Did that cover the cleaning? And then, of course, you do the same thing where you would bow to the shrine and then refresh your offerings and so on, and put new up. Yes?
May the water be poured back into your vessel and reused the next day.
No, that's not customary. In fact, it's customary to have, even though it's not customary to put new rice in the bowls, it is customary to use fresh water every day. Yeah. Yeah, because again, as Rinpoche said, do you eat every day? Do you drink every day? And so on. Yeah. Yes? Oh, okay. Other questions? Yes?
I don't usually buy fresh flowers, so would a plastic flower or a wood flower be okay?
Yes. The questioner is asking, it's mentioning that it's not easy to get fresh flowers, and it's not convenient to offer them. And yes, plastic and silk flowers are fine. I've seen everything, and I mean, like on here, there's even, on this shrine, there's even, this is metal. This flower is made of metal, and it's painted to look like a flower. I think it's lovely. But if you get fresh flowers, you can always offer those. Can you offer a plant? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I know you can get small succulent plants, and I mean tiny ones that look like miniatures. Those would be fine. You could even put one in the bowl. It would fit. Other questions?
I would like to do extra offerings.
Yeah.
To the shrine, and I don't necessarily have anything with me. Could I imagine?
Oh, yeah. I'm really glad you asked this question. The questioner is saying if you want to make extra offerings on a particular day, like the Buddhist holy days, often what will happen is I have these tiny brass bowls that are literally only 1 inch across. I have no idea why I bought them, but I suspect I bought them for this purpose. And I set an extra row of water bowls out on the Buddhist holidays. But what if you're in a hurry or busy and you can't do it? This is really an important thing, and Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche mentions it in his teaching. He said it's important to realize that the offerings you make on the shrine are just representational. They're just representational. They're just examples. He said you can close your eyes and imagine that you fill all of space with amazing offerings of all kinds, jewels, incense, lamps, perfume, everything. That you just fill the sky with beautiful things and offer those. So that's a really good, in fact, there's something called the 7-branch prayer that goes all the way back to ancient India. And it says, I offer these both in reality and with my imagination. And so you can make them really, really big because it's really in a way, what we are always offering, always, like the subtext of our offering, is that we're offering our own body, speech, and mind, which is all we possess, truly. We only truly possess our body, speech, and mind, and we are in effect offering all of that in symbolic ways. And so the mental offerings are fabulous. And in fact, you can make those mental offerings anywhere. The Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche told me, he said, when I was a child in Tibet, we didn't have a lot of money in my house. In my household, they lived in a tent, and they were nomads and followed the pasture land for the seasons of the year. And he said, we didn't have a lot of money. So he said, what we did was that we would offer anything beautiful we encountered. He said that the sky, and I'm looking at the sky today, it is the color of turquoise. The sky today is this amazing, piercing shade of blue. You could offer it like the finest turquoise. He said the snow on the snow-capped mountains would sparkle like diamonds. And he said we would offer the diamonds that we saw in the snow. And the clouds, the billowing heaps of clouds shining with sunlight. We would offer flowers that grew in the spring and the summer. We would see anything beautiful we would mentally offer it to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for the benefit of all sentient beings. So you can make offerings anywhere. Your shrine can be truly portable. Yes?
For Mahakala offering, can I make a pot of tea and use it for a few days?
Oh, yeah. Yes, there is, the person is asking about a special kind of shrine offering that I didn't cover today, so I'll cover it briefly. There are lots of other kinds of offerings that exist. For example, when I came in this morning, I went outside with a stick of incense and placed it in one of the flower pots outside. And I made a mental offering of that to all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and all of the local gods and spirits, saying to them, thanks for being here, thanks, praise to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and may this incense smoke be pleasing to everyone who experiences it, and may the conditions for good dharma in this location grow and flourish. This is a traditional offering that's made in every Tibetan household in the morning. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said it was the grandparents' job to make this little offering every day. But there are lots of other kinds of offerings that can get made. And one of them is called the offering to the Dharma protectors. I like to think of the Dharma protectors as being like guardian angels, if you want to use Western terminology. They're enlightened Buddhas or enlightened Bodhisattvas whose job it is to be reminders to us to practice well and not do unvirtuous things and hold ourselves back from doing unvirtuous things. Pema Chodron, the great writer, American Buddhist writer, she said, the protector principle is our ability to say no to negative action. It's what holds us back from doing things that are negative. That's what the protector principle is, and there's a way to nourish that through offering. What's often offered is a small chalice like this one that is used for the lamp offering. There's a special protector chalice. It can be small or large, and you can place a little bit of grain in it and then pour some tea on top of that. And then you would put a drop of offering amrita on it, and then that would be offered to the protectors. And at the end of the day, it would be discarded, or after you recite your protector liturgy, which some people do, but some people don't. They just make the offering. They don't recite a liturgy, but they would take it outside afterward. And the questioner is asking a question that's very similar to the question asked earlier, which is, can you use the same water again. You can't use the same water again, and you can't use the same tea again. But it is sometimes done in Tibetan Buddhist monasteries that the tea is made a day or two in advance and then can be used over the next 2 days. But then I would replace it, because tea can become moldy quite easily, and especially in warm climates, so it's better not to tempt fate and have moldy offerings, which is never pleasant. We've got time for one more question. How did that go, guys? Are you okay? Did you feel like you learned something today? Fantastic. I'm extremely happy to have had this opportunity. And for the folks at home on Zoom, thank you very much for joining. And I'm so happy that I hope this was helpful in your ability to take care of your shrine. And I will take that on under advisement to have to do further workshops on the ritual practices, such as bowing and using a mala and so on. I'll see what I can do to put something together about that, because I think that's lovely. So it's my hope that you'll go home and be able to put together a shrine. And I want to apologize to the people who sent me pictures of their shrine, and I was going to do a little bit of shrine doctoring. I was going to say the shrine doctor is in, and then I was going to do that. I will still, if you want to go ahead and send me a picture of your shrine at Lama Kathy, LAMAKATHY, at columbusktc.org. I'll send you back a letter. It'll probably take about a week, and I'll make comments and make some advice. But I'm basing all of this on Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche's teaching on the shrine, which I will be giving an excerpt of to everyone who's here. I'll be sending it by email to you, and you can download it and read it, and then if you have other questions, you can let me know. So to conclude, I want to thank you, but we're going to dedicate our merit. This is another customary Buddhist thing. We start with refuge and we end with a dedication, dedicating the merit to all beings. So let's feel some gratitude for having had the opportunity to work together on this program today, and make the aspiration that we are able to take care of our shrines and our inner Buddha nature. We dedicate all this merit to all suffering beings. We'll recite these 2 prayers, one after the other, one time. By this merit, may all attain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may we free all beings. The courageous Manjushri, who knows everything as it is, Samantabhadra, who also knows in the same way, and all the bodhisattvas that I may follow in their path, I completely dedicate all this virtue. Thanks, everyone. And Julaine, would you like to have people help you put things away? Okay. Yeah. Oh, very good. Yes, if people would like to come up and take a look up close at the shrine that's here, that's great. And if people want to help putting away the tables, that'd be great too. So thank you. And thank you to the sound guy and the Zoom host, and also the local greeter. Thank you very much for helping us out today. Om Mani Padme Hum.